Hello Orchid friends, welcome back to my channel. Wherever you are, I hope you're having a great day, staying healthy and staying safe. Today we're going to look at my two Phalaenopsis bellina, alba. This particular one, I got it from an eBay seller. I don't believe he is a breeder or hybridizer. I think he might have basically purchased a bottle of flask and then grow them so that they're big enough to be resold. But I think I only paid $15 or $18 for it at the time. It was obviously a seedling, even though it was marketed as a near mature size plant, but it took me a couple years. I think 2, maybe 3 years, but it took me a while. And this orchid is blooming for the second time. It bloomed last cycle, and I think it gave me 1 flower. And then this is a bloom from a new spike. And this time around, this orchid actually produced 2 buds. So I'm actually really happy that it's doing better. Later in the video, we're also going to see the orchid on the right, which is also a alba variety of bellina, but they are grown in 2 different methods. So the one on the left, it is actually in moss medium and in a 8-ounce cup with no drainage hole. So it is a moss no hole method. And the trick to this method, there are actually 2 tricks. One trick is the moss has to be completely fluffy and loose inside the container. It needs to have a lot of air in between. And then the second thing is watering, because there's no drainage hole. So you got to really be careful about the amount of water you give to this orchid if you don't want to have to dump out the water. For this orchid, I would give this orchid 1/4 cup of water, sometimes a little less, sometimes even closer to 1/8 of a cup, depending on the season. For example, winter time, I usually only give this orchid 1/8 of a cup. And that should be good for a good 7 days, so that it would have that wet dry cycle completion. Or you can soak this orchid every single time, but you have to make sure you dump out the water completely until it doesn't drip anymore. And typically after an hour after you dump out all the water, you're supposed to come back to this orchid and see if there's any excess water pooling at the bottom of the cup due to gravity. And if there is, you want to go ahead and dump out those as well, because all the moss is already highly saturated. You definitely do not want any water pooling at the bottom. So those are the 2 tricks: fluffy moss, and then really be careful about how you water and always drain out the excess. And here is a video clip of this orchid blooms, 2 buds, no bud blast. The flower's fragrance is also just like bellina, because it is after all a bellina plant. I was thinking maybe an alba form may have slightly different kinds of fragrance, but it's the same. Very sweet, just like a regular bellina, except the lip and the center of the entire flower is white, and then along the edge of the flowers, gosh, you look at that light green, lime green color, which I love. I feel like I also am very attracted to orchids with that green tips around the flowers. So I find this orchid extremely attractive and, very pleasant to look at. When I first got the first bellina, the typical bellina, and then I saw some videos of someone sharing that person's bellina alba in bloom, and it was a very mature sized plant with I think 3 spikes, and each spike has like 1 or 2 bellina flower open alba form. I was completely captivated by that particular orchid and the way the orchid looked. So I told myself I have to get one. And then it took me a while because, yes, I did find some orchid nurseries selling their bellina alba online, but because those were all very mature sized plants, and it would cost upward, $50, $60, $70 upwards. And I just couldn't get myself to pay that kind of price. So I waited until I came across this one on eBay, and then another orchid nursery for the second one you're about to see. So this one is also putting out a spike and is also giving me 2 flower this bloom cycle, which you'll see later. The growing medium is a mixture of manto clay and hydrocorn. It's also in an 8-ounce cup because these 2 orchids are considered quite young plants, so their root systems aren't big. So I wanted to make sure that they are in a smaller container so that it's easier for me to control how I water and the amount of water I give to these 2 orchids. And so far, they have responded really well, and I'm so glad that I haven't killed them during the process now that they are mature enough to be able to give me bloom, which I then can make videos to share with you. This one is slightly later in terms of the blooming timing, and you can tell it's a lot greener. And then as time goes on, the green would eventually fade into more of a yellowish whitish yellow. And then eventually everything would look like the flower on the left, which is pretty much everything white, except you have that green edge around the flower tips. Of course, there's a little bit of that yellow on the top of the lip, but the entire lower lip itself, it's just white, and it looks very clean, very pristine. And again, the fragrance is just so pleasant, and I really, really enjoy my bellina albas, these 2 plants. They're actually very easy to care for. There, for some reason, is a myth where species orchids are difficult to take care of. No, that's a myth. Not every single species orchids are difficult to take care of. In fact, bellina is one of those ones that would just do so well if you just provide basic common orchid care. So don't be afraid to try it out. And there are other varieties, regular bellina, wild forms, cerulean, indigo, so don't be afraid to try them out. I think you'll eventually find that this is a very easy orchid to care for. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!